you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good morning. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. All right, thanks for watching. And it is the show before Thanksgiving. Not sure what's going to happen on Friday. I think there's so much in this poll that probably I'll wind up doing something. I think it's, you're all fat. You're all stuffed filled with pumpkin pie and tryptophan from the turkey. And, normally I don't do it, but considering we did this poll, I'm probably going to have to do it because there's just so much to do. All right, so let's get into this. All right, first and foremost, I think it's what we should get into is the Biden's overall approval. Let's stick with the order in which, or at least general order in which we conducted this poll. Okay. Some of this I got some charts for. Some of it I'm going to show interactively on interactive graphics for on the crosstabs. And then, of course, if you're in locals, we got some of those layouts up and running on Everviz. First and foremost, let's look at Joe Biden's approval rate. Okay. So Joe Biden has fallen below 40. We did tens of percentage points on purpose to show you how bad it really is. The disapproval rating, I think, is the bigger story. Of course, you're going to fall, generally speaking, you'll fall more if your disapproval starts to skyrocket like this. 58.6% is very difficult to reach in modern America, folks. All right, people are very partisan. That's just the way it is. And if you've had a chance to look at the crosstabs, then you know where this is coming from. Biden's approval with independents now is about 30%. All right. Generally speaking, about 30%. If we go to party and we look at overall, which I'll show you in a little bit, the independent other categories is actually in the 30.2. Okay. Breaking that down and taking third party voters out is really what can help him a little bit. Because he's at 30, what is he at? 30.29%. Oh, no, it's not. Doesn't help him very much at all. 30.1 against raw independents. And the bleak 13% approval rating among third-party voters is what brings him down to the flat 30.2. Okay. Among Democrats, there has been some significant slippage for Joe Biden. 82.8% of Democrats still approve of the job he is doing, but 15.8% of Democrats disapprove. All right. This is a break in the base of the party. I don't know if that's going to last. We have, you guys have seen in some of the other tracking when he started to begin to fall, we saw him fall into the, or the disapproval rise into the low double digits. But this now is starting to become like 15% and above. Once you hit that like 12-ish, you could be in some trouble. And that's when there's significant crossover if you're pitted up against somebody else, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. I'll leave the overall approved disapprove chart up while we get into some of the issues. None of them are good. He's in the 30s on just about every single issue, except for coronavirus, which is still not good. And you'll know why if you've been paying attention to the trend. But the jobs in the economy, he's at 38.5%. Approved combined. 21.8 of that is somewhat, only 16.7% is strongly. Disapproval for Joe Biden now on the economy is now 58.7%. 43.8% of that is strongly disapprove. Nearly 80% of Republican voters strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing. 57% of third-party voters strongly disapprove, and 45% of independents strongly disapprove. When you combine that together, 46% of non-two-party voters strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing. Okay. On the economy, it gets, again, this is 46.3 with the independent and third party. Let's take a look at the pandemic because this really matters. All right. And then I'll briefly mention Harris's. After I get out of the screen. I just want to keep this trend up for you guys to digest while I'm reading the issues. And that'll all be on locals later. It'll be on locals today. If you have the crosstab link, you can go check that out right now. Okay. And in fact, you know what? If you guys want to digest the crosstabs, here we go. Here is the fall 2021 crosstabs. There we go. I'm actually going to put it into the comment section for people who have not had a chance to look at it. Locals, it's going in there as well. I know you do have it already, but you'll notice we added quite a bit to it so far. There's a lot of issues with the registered voter economic confidence index. The raw percentages are in there now, and we will go over the calculated index levels in a little bit as well. All right, but the employer mandates in there, school vaccine mandates are in there. Everything, almost everything we asked about. The social desirability bias indicators, I have to apologize. They'll be in there for this one. I must have missed them in the last one. They're there. I just didn't make them public. So if I did right now, you would see that they're huge and they're ugly. So I have to make them look pretty. All right. And then, Laura is here. She was running a little bit late. Oh, my word. You look fantastic today. All right, getting back to it. And I love them. We'll talk about that later. They look great. You're right. All right, Biden's approval on the pandemic. More specifically, do you approve or disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing on each of the following issues? Handling the coronavirus pandemic. 23.9% strongly approve versus 37.6% who now strongly disapprove. This is by far coming from independents. We know we've had Republicans, who at least in the beginning had some goodwill toward Joe Biden on the pandemic. That had soured about 3 months ago or so, more, a little bit before Afghanistan. Like I said, Afghanistan was not the trigger for Biden's falling approval ratings. The Delta variant was. And the general realization that Joe Biden could not do a better job on the pandemic than Donald Trump, that it was generally an impossible campaign promise to keep. All right. So, okay. 42.6% of independents now strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing on the coronavirus pandemic. Another 23% disapprove, coming to an independent total of 65.6% of independents who disapprove of the job that Joe Biden is doing. Overall, 37.6% strongly disapprove, 16.6% disapprove. Do the quick math there, folks. You get there yet? He's in basically the mid 50s. All right. So 16.6, 37.6. That is the worst rating I think we found for him yet. I'd have to go back and look, but obviously it's the worst on coronavirus. But I think the prior, when he first reversed, I think it was only like a -2. I'd have to go back and look. If people have the Evervis link on locals handy, I know I shoot out a lot of stuff. I want to say that it was like 48, 49, something around that. All right. All right, but anyway, we'll look at that a little bit more. Let's take this down because we're going to get into Harris's approval, okay? All right, Kamala Harris has had some really ugly approval ratings lately, okay, in some other polls. We didn't find this massive spread between Biden and Harris like some other polls have found, 28, 29% in, I believe, Quinnipiac, right? We didn't find that, even though he was at 36 in Quinnipiac. So, we have him a couple of points higher. But Kamala Harris is in bad shape. 44.3%, strongly disapproved 13.4 for a grand total of 57.7% who disapprove of the job she is doing as vice president. Only 36.3% combined approve of the job she is doing. The plan, if there was one, to push Kamala Harris forward in front of Joe Biden, who I know this week, there was a report that he publicly and privately has said that, yes, I am running for re-election. He would be 82 years old if he was reelected president. And by the time he's sworn in again for his next term. I don't think anybody seriously believes that, folks. I mean, let's get real here. But the idea, and you could see it when she first ran. You had your so-called forecasters who just have really good web graphics, but they don't know what they're doing. Their job is to move betting markets so their friends can make money and help Democrats raise money and give narrative, support and all that other stuff, but they don't actually call elections correctly or rank pollsters correctly. They generally pushed her, and they made even the argument that she could carry working class Midwestern voters. That's crazy. About as crazy as the headline yesterday that the Kyle Rittenhouse trial brought together the extremist right and the moderate right. I think we didn't do it, but I think if we were to poll Americans right now, after the media coverage was so bad, I think you would find that the sentiment toward Kyle Rittenhouse is much different, and that really doesn't have a whole heck of a lot to do with just Republicans, but probably independents as well. Why do I say that? Across the board on this issue, the vaccines, on Biden's handling of the economy, employment, if you break it down by party, independents and Republicans are basically simpatico here. All right. Let's look at generic ballot numbers. Here is the generic ballot by party. All right. Republicans look, you guys, if you are watchers of the show, you know darn well that I am not a big believer in polls or the concept that Republicans could easily win a popular vote. I just don't, I just don't buy that. I haven't in the past, because I'm looking at numbers in big blue states and the margins they vote for Democrats. It'd be very difficult, but not if battleground states swing significantly, and not just battleground state. Look at what happened in New Jersey. All right. It is, I have to concede, real. So when I saw the NBC News poll, Republicans +10, 49, 39, I about choked. I was, very skeptical, to say the least. I think it could have been worse in our polling for Democrats. Maybe I'm, I don't weight the same way as they do, which absolutely has an impact. We don't weight by party. We weight by region, age, race, gender, etc., as you could read in the methodology. Maybe that had a hand in those, because I could easily see tweaking party a little bit, even if you're trying to get a little bit, more of a likely voter electorate, which we'll do eventually anyway. We asked the likely voter screen, and we have vote history on these voters. I may, for what's in giggles, later put up for locals what the likely voter model would show. But this is just registered voters right now because we have trackers, COVID, economic confidence, that we need to keep the entire registered voter pool as the target population. But I did ask. I did screen. And I got to tell you, it's not looking any better for Democrats. It's looking slightly worse. So I could see Rasmussen had Republicans plus 13. I can see that. And Laura is here now, and she will tell you, I struggled with this poll. I struggled to find an error. I mean, this could have been out easily yesterday. It could have been. But I struggled to find an error because I can't recall, even 2010, 2014, I cannot recall a poll this bad for Democrats. This may be the worst poll for Democrats I've ever conducted. Ever.
It's quite
bad.
You should have seen him, y'all.
Going through the raw data, line by line. Did somebody lie? Let's check their record. Let's do it. I went meticulous. But you know what I did find? I did find 5 African-American females, 18 to 29, who live in urban America, who told us they were registered Republicans. That's what I found when I went through it. And of course, they're not registered Republicans. All right. So it was to no avail, is my point. All right. Suffolk, USA, very close to your lead with independents here for Republicans. Suffolk, USA Today, whatever. Suffolk University conducts polling for USA Today. I saw that lead and I thought, that's a little ridiculous. It's not. Republicans have a very big lead among independents in the generic ballot. They have their base locked up. Each party is losing about 1.6% of their base to someone else. Independents and others are always going to make up the lion's share of someone else, but 47-39 is it. It's Republicans plus 8. The generic ballot is very strong for Republicans right now. All right, which in the end, I was polling and looking at the raw data, and it looked like we're doing Trump v. Biden as well, which I will show you, and Trump v. Harris. And it's a bloodbath. And for the first night, Trump was running stronger than Republicans on the generic ballot. The margins aren't all, well, I don't want to give some away if you haven't seen it yet, but you'll see that there's a bigger someone else vote in the presidential vote preference than there is for the generic ballot, which doesn't surprise me as somebody who polled 2016 and started polling the hypotheticals a few months ago, because it looked more like 2016 for 2020. So for the people out there who are going to say, when I show you these numbers in a second, that, well, it's early and there's a huge someone else category, and in the end they'd vote for Biden, that would be incredibly foolish to believe, because we polled all through 2020 for ourselves and for the Epoch Times. Biden never had a problem cracking mid to high 40s. Never. And on those third-party voters, which is why we do this and break them down the way we do, unlike other pollsters, I think we're the only ones. Because those third-party voters can be critical in a 4-way race, in a 3-way race. The idea like you could ever poll Trump v. Clinton or Trump v. Biden, that's ridiculous. The race was never Trump v. Clinton or Trump v. Biden. It was Trump v. Clinton versus Johnson versus Stein, and Trump v. Clinton versus Jorgensen versus Hawkins in most states, even though Democrats were successful getting Hawkins off and others off the ballot. All right, so this is a bloodbath, since we're all using that word to mock you-know-who. This is a bloodbath. This is a crushing defeat for Democrats. So if you think Virginia and New Jersey was one off, you better think again, because Republicans lost the popular vote by about 4 points. If you're looking at the presidential election, they're now ahead by 8. That is right on par with the median 12-point swing we saw on election night a few weeks ago. A little bit more in New Jersey.
Mhm.
But in Virginia, it was about 12 points. All right.
End quote.
End quote. We'll get into some of the other issue things here, but I think first I want to end of quote. End of quote. Come on now.
Read the prompt
and I
today.
think, you know what, we should have asked about competency or something like that. I wanted to. Oh, can we fix that? I wanted to ask about
Yes.
competency, but I wanted to be as clean as possible. Now that we know some of these numbers are there and they exist, we have to find out what is driving that. So now it is about, so Quinnipiac doing that in their second and third polls after they found Biden like at 39, that's legitimate. But now, because they're trying to find, well, what is it? Is it because he's not honest and trustworthy, doesn't care about people like you, is incompetent? What is it? And by the way, yeah, I'm wearing orange in the spirit of Thanksgiving.
Ho, ho, ho.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Ho, ho, ho.
gobble,
Come on
gobble.
now. Gobble, gobble. Let's not get there yet, even though we already started the Christmas decorating. Because last year she said, I want to do it on Thanksgiving.
And he was like,
And I said, no,
we got plenty
or
of
before
time."
Thanksgiving. And I said, no, we got plenty of time. Not when you decorate like we decorate. You
No,
do not have
when
plenty
Laura
of time.
gets the
Laura was right.
Christmas spirit.
Laura was right. Okay. All right. So let's see what I'm talking about here. Now it would be wise to find out what it is, what is happening that is making this so bad for Democrats. Okay, let's get out of party. Let's go. Even age, guys. Go, because this happened in Glenn Youngkin too. And McAuliffe started to lose the 18 to 24 support that he had. And I had 18 to 29 because we do 25 to 29, 18 to 24, you know, as close to exits we can. And people were like, I don't know, that looks kind of close for the young crowd. I don't know. I think that's why you got Youngkin ahead, because the youth vote is so close. It was close. And you'll see here that Trump takes basically every age group from 30 to 39 up. And that the rest is pretty darn close. All right, real quick. Yeah, let's just bust this out. You guys can see this, or let me zoom in just a little bit. What's the matter? You having battery issues?
Yes.
That's all right.
Sorry.
You want to use, yeah, I was going to say you can use
I'm
mine.
gonna try to.
All right, so Trump is, there's no other way to put it. He's stomping Joe Biden, 45-37. And again, I struggled with this like crazy. And pollsters do speak to each other. And I, you know, oh, never mind. I was just reading somebody saying pollsters, of course, do speak to each other. And lo and behold, Rasmussen comes out today with Trump plus 13. So I thought I was showing maybe too much of a dramatic lead. But I guess, I mean, look, Biden is having a very hard time getting to 40%. Laura, how many times did I say, what if?
If I could
Still couldn't get to
if I could tell you what I saw last night, it was
stress.
I think he grew 10 more gray hairs last night.
Stress.
I said, trust your numbers. Stop it.
Yeah, she always does that. Trust your numbers, trust your data, trust your data. She's like the biggest voice of reason because
I mean, after me going over and you explaining what you're finding, and it's just
it was exhausting, but I am very thorough. I pride myself on being very thorough. The bottom line is Trump leads Biden in a D+6 environment. He still leads Joe Biden, which after a while and it's not a D+6. That's another thing I think people need to realize. The registration numbers didn't change all that much. Affiliation did. It got about 1 point more Republican than our prior survey, but not registration-wise. What's happening? Some independents are saying, I'm a Republican. Are you? You're not registered a Republican, but I get what you're saying. You know, that's very fluid, and that's common. It happens. But it can show you underlying trends of what is going on. Under Donald Trump, he cannibalized a lot of independents. He won him in 2016, but then he lost him in 2020, even though it was very, very close, because he just turned a whole bunch of them into Republicans. So when we called them, they in many cases, just changed their registration. They were no longer non-party affiliated. So they would tell us, I'm a Republican. And that's why the Republican electorate was more beefed up. Nationally, we typically we sway anywhere between D2 to D4. This one is like on the money, or D1.4, but in registration it's D2.6. So in other words, about 1.2% of the total electorate is coming from people who say they're registered, or that they are Republican, but they're not registered. Okay? That's a bad sign for Democrats. It's a bad sign. People swing with the breeze.
Yes.
And they're like, you know what? Today I'm Republican. You know how many Democrats you could, if you would rewind 40 years, or roughly 40 years, and go and speak to Democrats who voted for Ronald Reagan, they would tell you, oh, no, I'm a Republican under Reagan. I'm serious. A lot of them would say, no, you're not. Been a Democrat for years, but not under Ronald Reagan. I'm not. I'm a Republican. Or they would call themselves like a Reagan Democrat kind of thing. All right, so it's fluid. There is a large someone else vote. What did Rasmussen find for someone else? 17%. We did see it actually rise when we were trying different, different weights. It rose the more Democratic the electorate got, because if you look and you see, and actually I'll bring up my party right now. Let's go to, because I want to show the two-party voters too. You can see more Democrats will choose a third-party voter than Republicans. All right. But in the end, it really comes down to Trump takes a significant number of Democrats. He takes literally twice, as many Democrats as Joe Biden takes Republicans. He's creaming 44-28. He's among raw independents. Raw. I'll combine it in a second and show you the number. It's 21 points among two-party voters, which is a complete reversal from 2020. Combined together, Trump is carrying independents by about 16 points. All right, in our polling. That's independent others. I know that's confusing, but no other pollster breaks the third-party vote down. And of the third-party vote, let me make sure I give you. Let me just open the representation and participation. Let me look it up, and because I really want to tell you. Okay. The funny thing is, third-party voters typically in our polling can be 5 all the way up to 7%. They were actually about 3.5% this time. Independents, raw independents, non-parties, 28.6. All right. And it's, if you round, it is D+2. It's 35 Democrat, 33 or 35 Democrat, 33 Republican, and the rest being independents and others. If you round, if you look at the decimal, it's really only about D1.1. But again, there's another 1.4, 1.6, something like that, that we do know to be registered Democrats. So that's what's happening there. All right. So it got a little bit more conservative. Usually our polling's around 36%, 37% conservative. It was just about 38 or something like that. I have to go back and check. But this happened in Virginia. Yeah, 38.7. This happened in Virginia. More people, as we polled over the weeks, more people were saying, I'm conservative, I'm conservative, I'm conservative. And that's not, what we started all finding. And in the end, we were right about that. I just want to point this out. The margin wasn't what made us so right in Virginia. In the end, we overestimated Youngkin just a little bit. What made us accurate was the projection of the electorate itself. Nailed party identification. Nailed the ideology composition of the electorate, even though it was the most conservative electorate since Bob McDonnell won in 2009. So believe me when I tell you, we don't wait to exit polls. All right. The National Voter File Database. The National Voter File Database. All right. And then the electorate will tell you. This is what I tell my friends all the time. Don't tell the electorate what the hell it looks like. it will tell you what it looks like. If you're listening. All right. Let's look at some interesting stuff here. Parental. Let's look at parental. School-age children under 18, Donald Trump has about a 10-point lead. One are all under 18, but not yet school-aged, which has tended to be at least somewhat, not favorable to Democrats, but we've been talking about this now for like 10 months, almost. It basically is a category where their children aren't in school yet, so they're not dealing with some of the problems they are hearing about on social media or the news or from their kids who come home and say, did you see, Dad, what they tried to teach me in school? Did you know there was a sexual assault in the bathroom? Whatever. And that tended to help Democrats quite a bit. Not here. The biggest lead Trump has among parents is among new parents. And I have a theory. Because these people are terrified about the economy. And so it's vast majority, has to deal with the economy. And then there is a contingency that is worried about COVID, doesn't like how Biden handled, now disapproves of how he handles it, but also worried about these strict mitigation things they just can't take anymore. So they're looking at all this with young children, inflation, and they're saying to themselves, what the hell did I do?
That part.
We hear that all the time, which is just tragic.
You reap what you sow.
You should be happy to have, no, but I mean, you should be happy to be a new parent. Like, you should not be filled with trepidation over the future for your child. All right. Yes, and until Democrats realize this, these numbers aren't getting any better because they've crossed the threshold. It's like too late now. All right. Yes, all 18 or over, which is typically the most conservative. It obviously does even better. Trump does even better against Biden. Biden carries people who do not have children, and he doesn't carry them by much at all anymore. That is the Democrats' most solid. And speaking of which, even married or bimarital status, Trump is doing what Republicans usually do among married, people. Trounce. Widows is just about even. Trump has a very statistically insignificant lead. Single, however, which is where Democrats really widen their legs here. Single, which is a big group. All right. The second biggest group, in fact. Barely leading. 42 to 39. That's not good for any Democratic candidate. That is not good news. Separated, another very good group for Democrats, a 9-point lead. Again, much less than what we had seen in 2020. But Separated's not that big of a category. Sadly, Divorced is bigger. Still, again, another great category for Democrats. Biden's leading 42-36, losing a lot to someone else. And then Widowed, that's it. That's it. That's all the marital statuses there are. Devastating. Region or religion, excuse me. And I can't wait to get to area and region, because the biggest decline in popularity that we have seen, or approval, for Joe Biden was in the Northeast. If you remember, all three other regions began to sour on Biden before. And the Northeast was steady, right? Mm-hmm. Steadfast, 60% approval. We don't care you're in the 40s. We don't, they were really holding Biden up. And now the Northeast collapsed this month. And we'll get into that in a second. Protestant, other, it's a romping, of course. Catholic, Donald Trump has now taken the Catholic vote, which, if you believe in the exit polls, Hillary Clinton barely carried the Catholic vote. Trump carried it against all other Catholics except for Hispanics, which I should show you his lead among Cubans. If you're on locals right now, the Latin detail question isn't in there yet. I will get this up for you. The lead among Cubans is enormous. And they're Catholic. So it's helping. But even Mexicans got better for Donald Trump. This working class Mexican contingency that were just, and I can show you if you want, I'll show you the map. We did not get as much of places like South and Southwestern Texas that we wanted to get, right? I kept trying to, go back. Chances are the picture among Mexican Americans is even worse for Biden. Much worse. All right, so Catholics 45, Trump 37. So Trump leads with the two largest religious affiliations. Biden does lead with others, 46-33. And he leads among those who don't have a religion, 42-34. The nuns, as my old pastor used to call it, the rise of the nuns. All right, if you really look at the numbers, breaking it down by religious detail, Jewish voters are very secular and very liberal in the United States. Trump is taking 41%. Biden leads 54-41, with very few going to a third-party candidate and not very many undecided. Okay, so why does this matter? And by the way, we oversampled Jewish voters. It just happened. We had to weight them down, or weigh down their representation. So rest assured, it may look like a small sample, but actually, I think we got 3 times that many. I went nuts sampling this time, right? Mm-hmm. Because I just saw what I saw, and I'm like, I'm going to be damn sure I'm right about this, So I just went ballistic on overrepresenting groups. You know what? I want more black men. I need more rural whites. Give me more give me more graduates and postgraduates. I just go nuts. I really was. I don't like the way urban looks. Give me more. And those on locals know from the regional participation map that was sent out over the weekend, it was pretty metro. It started to fill in on Sunday, but it was pretty metro. Oh, by the way, wait till you see. Forget about that map. That map is of the raw data as it comes in. And this will be all the raw data points too, but we think we have figured out with high charts through Everviz how to make super cool interactive maps, which we've always wanted to show you, where you click on the dot and it pops up. Like you will see dots all over the map. It's so cool. And then you will click on the dots and it will say female 30-44 makes this much money. Is this a registration? And generally we can't give a ton of information because it's only going to be on a little pop-up tooltip, but we can tell you whether they approve or disapprove, and if there are hypotheticals who they chose. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, moving on. Trump should be getting killed among Jewish voters is my point that I really just went the long way around to tell you. All right.
Not you.
Jewish voters should be much lower than 41%. I think, and people say, well, Biden blew the Abraham Accords. There's everything going on in Palestine, Afghanistan. Folks, truth be told, American Jews really don't care about issues of the faithful and issues of the homeland. That's the reality. They do, however, care about their money like everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. They're just like anybody else when the economy is not doing well, despite what the Bureau of Labor Statistics, nobody believes the numbers coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics because the number of jobs has been underperforming. Last month was good, but they're not good jobs. So Americans are basically like, I will trade a 500,000 jobs report filled with that garbage for a 250 to 300 filled with high wage jobs. And the wage data is still grossly distorted. You have a lot of people being taken out of leisure and hospitality jobs, stuff like that, and for other service jobs. And that really distorts the wage data. It is not comparable to the pre-pandemic wage data. It's not. And by the way, the above 3%, 4% wage started under the prior president. This one takes credit for it, but it's not accurate. All right. Biden trounces Trump among Muslims. No shocker. He trounces well, natural ounces. I mean, it's a 9-point lead among those who have another religion. And he has an 8-point lead roughly among those who have no religion. But because Trump's margin is so big among Protestants and among Catholics, it's just simply not enough. Okay. Evangelicals is more than, I mean, Trump is even winning those who don't call themselves an evangelical. This no opinion right here, you probably, in our experience, could just go ahead and add those 38 responses to the 315, which would bring Trump much higher among evangelicals. And especially if you look by region, it's really impressive. They're not really undecided or going to choose somebody else, folks. It's just the nature of polling sometimes. All right. Trump has retaken the suburbs, as have Republicans on the generic ballot. Let me go back here first. Republicans lead Democrats in the suburbs by 10.2 points. Okay. Trump leads Biden in the suburbs by about 8 points. So Republicans do a little bit better in the suburbs than Trump does. All right. But again, 31.6% in urban America for Donald Trump, 33.6% for urban Republican candidates. But in rural America, Trump does better. All right. So he gets a little bit more of the rural vote. Biden gets a lot less of the rural vote than Democrats. So it is possible to win the suburbs by a much smaller margin, but then still carry the overwhelming majority of the popular vote, because especially if there's a third party candidate in the race. All right. That would have to be, I'm curious to see how Democrats play 2024, because that would have to be what they'd have to do if the election was held today. They would have to run around again and get people like Howie Hawkins off the ballot. They would have to do it. Let me get rid of myself and you'll see. You know what I mean? That's still no guarantee, because Donald Trump has a lot shorter to go to 50.1 than Joe Biden does. And I suspect a generic Democrat would not have done much better. What we would probably have seen is something closer to this, where we just see the numbers firm up a little bit and someone else goes a little bit, it goes down. But I really don't believe, that would have changed all that much. Again, very early. Of course, it's very early. But it is what it is. Hold on. There's some big news in this. Give me 1 second. Okay. I needed a sip of water to Rubio out. Look at the Northeast. In our previous generic ballot, which had a much smaller lead, but nevertheless a lead for Republicans, Republicans lost the South. All right? I mean, the Northeast, excuse me. Oh, my goodness.
I was like, what?
No.
That's crazy.
The Midwest is a 4-point lead for Republicans. The South is about a 12-point lead. And the West is also about, 8 to 9 point lead. 8 point, sorry. The Northeast is the biggest shock in this poll. And it's real, because we saw Joe Biden's approval fall so significantly in the Northeast this month. I'm telling you, that puppy was holding fast, high 50s, low 60s, combined approval. This time it fell into the 40s. And everybody, I don't think I have to tell anybody in this audience that presidential job approval rating has a very, very, very strong relationship with the generic ballot. All right. Going to Trump now. Trump doesn't get 47%. It falls quite a bit, but so does Joe Biden. And Trump carries this. What does this mean? Well, it means that 10-point lead in New Hampshire is gone. It means Donald Trump carries New Hampshire by like 2 or 3 points. It means Maine statewide is very close. It means the 2nd congressional district is gone. I mean, it's probably Trump plus 15. Right? It's significant. And it probably means states like Connecticut will be much closer. All right. The Midwest, Trump has a lead. In the South, of course, Trump has the biggest lead in the South. And in the West, Trump has a lead. So, Donald, there is not a single region because Joe Biden loses so many too. I do believe he could probably catch up in the Northeast if those third-party voters did not go their way. In the Midwest, interestingly, in this category, these third-party votes are where Donald Trump's lion's share will come from. Not the South, actually, which was pretty interesting. Of course, still would be, but he's still going to take more of them. Joe Biden only has good-looking profiled someone else voters in the Northeast. All right. What do I mean by that? I mean they don't look like Trump voters or potential too likely Trump voters. That's really the only place where we looked and we said, all right, these undecideds and these voters who are voting for third parties are actually going to be a decent voting group for Biden. All right. The others they're not, especially in the Midwest. Ironically, it looks like when we went through some of this, we were really rural. I mean, really metro in two very important Midwestern states, Iowa and Wisconsin. Trump still led in Wisconsin. I'm not going to give away numbers because the sampling error is too big. But he led in Wisconsin. But I suspect that, what's his name? Fabrizio is probably closer to some of those Midwest vote leads. I am a little bit confused about some of those margins. If you look at who the Trump vote is, Georgia would not be the closest at all, especially with Biden's approval and 41%. Biden barely won Georgia and Arizona. So if we're seeing big swings, I don't know how Michigan could be like Trump plus 12 and Georgia be like Trump plus 3.
That part
doesn't make sense. Okay? Especially since I understand what people are saying with Georgia, but don't forget Georgia bucked the trend in 2018. It was a good Democratic year, and yet Republicans still held on. They barely lost in January those 2 Senate seats, and they did so because of themselves, because they refused to defend the president, which I've shown you beyond a shadow of a doubt is what cost them the Senate. That and the paycheck bill. All right? McConnell's an idiot. He's an idiot. Speaking of which, wait till you see his favorabilities. Holy moly. We have to get them up too. All right. There's a lot to come. That's the thing with these polls, folks. I mean, this was a big poll. I want to point out here that females are about even. Trump leads among men by about 13 points. Females are within the sampling error, basically. But it does suggest like a Trump +1 among females. Republicans haven't won females since 2010.
Yeah.
And a Republican presidential candidate has not done it since 1988. George Herbert Walker Bush versus Michael Dukakis. Why? Because minority women they carry the white women, but minority women, why not the margin for Democrats? George W. Bush came pretty darn close against John Kerry, but nevertheless, he won men by 10. He lost women by 3. All right. Very close. This would be, what I'm saying is that there's a gender gap, but it's not because of women. There's a gender gap because of men, because Trump is carrying men by 13 points and eking out women. It suggests like Trump would win women by 1 point. I got to be honest with you. This is one of the things I struggled with. But other pollsters, go and look at their polls. They found the same thing. Mm-hmm. The gender gap among women is erased. It's basically even. And that is, it's a landslide. It's a landslide. And for people like, oh, so early, it's just, I will say this again. We never had Donald Trump leading Joe Biden nationally in 2020. Never, ever, ever. Never. Speaking of the Rittenhouse trial, which just went on, the rioting in Kenosha, he led in 2 days of tracking for the Epoch Times, or 3, maybe. He led in 2 days of tracking for the Epoch Times, which I believe, if I remember correctly, if I recall, they even did a story about how the poll had shipped. The national poll that we did for the Epoch Times probably was going to be about Biden +6 or 7. until the rioting started to have an impact. And then Trump started to take a tiny lead, and he chiseled away at it. Overall, that poll came out that month to Biden +4. But it should have been more like a Biden +6 or 7. But still, nationally, Biden still led. We never had this dynamic. It looks more like Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, or worse. Even worse. It does. It looks worse.
I was going to say, don't say maybe like.
No, it's worse. And I'm going to tell you why it's worse. Trump was winning men by such a large margin that he was able to offset the deficit with women, which wasn't as big as people kept saying it was going to be in polling. And in the end, it was not. He was doing so well in some, ironically, urban centers, but much better in rural areas, that he could lose the suburbs by a little bit and still win. It ended up, he did carry the suburbs by a hair. This is not a hair. Because when you're just gender alone, when you're winning men by a large margin, which is marginally smaller group, and you're either even or even maybe a little ahead, if the sampling error could suggest he would be a little bit behind, it's not enough to overcome the double-digit, advantage that you have with the other gender. Not that much. So this is a different dynamic. It's and that's politics. That's coalitions. Because, again, let me drive it home. The only thing you can count on being consistent with political coalitions is that they consistently evolve. No election, no electorate will ever be the same from one cycle to the next. I will challenge anybody to find one subsequent cycle that mirror the prior. You won't be able to because it doesn't happen. The electorate changes consistently. All right, let's take a look at Harris. Oh, and interestingly, that age group, yeah, there's something that goes on with the Trump v. Biden. It doesn't happen with Harris, but seniors, they're going for Trump, but they're barely going for Trump. Trump is really killing Biden among working class 30 to 64. Okay? The white working class margin is huge. I can show that to you if you want, but it's huge. Look at this, though. He barely carries seniors against Joe Biden. Really quick, if we flip to Harris v. Trump, that is not the case. That now, he a little bit higher support among seniors. She has a lot less support than Joe Biden. So it starts to widen out again. There's a nearly 10-point lead among seniors. I strongly, strongly suspect that when those people decide, they will decide for the Republican candidate. And when the 18 to 29s decide, they'll largely decide for the Democratic candidate. But this is very much like a Glenn Youngkin situation. Trump is like, even with 18 to 29 and then carrying every single other age group. A lot of these voters, they'll put Biden over. They'll put whoever the Democratic candidate is over when they decide. And some of these someone else's will not go someone else. But these voters will make up the lion's share of who eventually votes third party. That has been the case for a very long time. Ralph Nader, Gary Johnson, even Jill Stein. Those voters mostly were, not voting. Yeah. And some of this will look good for Joe Biden too. But I honestly don't think he would carry the 30 to 44. Why? I don't. I think Trump would take him. Why? Is because of this. 30 to 39, which is typically the better Democratic group, is a significant lead for Trump. About 7 points even. 40 to 49 is damn near 10. About 9, 8.9. So that 30 to 44 category overlaps with these two groups, and I just don't see where Biden's going to get them from. If you look at some of the recent Republican wins, and even some of the wins that were overshadowed, Florida, Ohio, Iowa, go and look at the age groups. Republicans are getting younger as a party. They are.
They're doing a good outreach program to the youth,
and it's the work.
Yes,
it's work. It's got to be. It's the economy itself. Mm-hmm. Who is looking out for their jobs,
their future?
Joe Biden sent a bunch of these working guys, 30 to 44, packing when he took a lot of these energy projects away. Think of that. So I tend to believe him. In Ohio, Donald Trump led every single age group. In Iowa, Donald Trump led every single age group. In Florida, Donald Trump really fought Joe Biden to a hell of a fight with 18 to 29. And he basically took everybody else, including the seniors, by the way, who looked close. Go and look at our polling. Some of the senior vote did look a little bit close in some of our poll. In the end, they went for him. That's, I think that they're getting checks. No, I'm not trying to disparage anybody. They're getting checks and they're COVID sensitive. So they're a little bit iffy on some of the Republicans. Bold, let's end the mandates. Let's do this. Let's do that. I'm coming up on the hour already. Wow. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm not sure we can get into that, which is why I want to have a stream on Friday, because there's just so much we need to cover. And this is not even everything, ladies and gentlemen. What you see right here is not everything. We have favorables to put in. Social desirability indicators. It's quite a bit. The poll's big.
I have a question from Jay.
Yeah, you know what? Give me, because we're so close to I don't want to go into top issues because we're so close to the top of the hour. Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah, let's take a question from Jay.
Can you ask Rich? The amazing thing is the Democrats are not doing anything to reverse the trends. They are still pedal to the floor on so many unpopular policies. Why?
Yeah, at first I would have thought off the bat, that they know they're going to lose and they're just going to try to get done as much as they possibly can. The polling is really bad for them. Mm-hmm. Check out this article in Politico, and I'll read some of it to answer this question. It's entitled, "The Democratic Brand is Broken, the Infrastructure Bill Isn't Fixing It." In one recent focus group, even those who voted for Joe Biden in 2020 weren't exactly sure what the party stands for. If you read through this, all right, here's a quote from, they say, the center-left group, Third Way guy. He's a lefty. Everybody's center-left when they're left. Mm-hmm. They are leftists. Statists, in fact. Voters couldn't name anything that Democrats had done, except a few who said we passed the infrastructure bill. They could not articulate what Democrats stand for. They're talking to focus groups of suburban Virginia voters. They're talking to themselves and each other. They are not talking to the whole of America. And they really believe, there's a part of them, and they'll be reinforced by focus groups like this that were a major waste of money. They believe that the real problem is that voters don't know what they've been doing. That is not the case. Voters do know what they've been doing and don't like it. Their voters may not, but the rest of the country, which is 2/3 of the country, does know and does not approve. So I think you have a combination, Jay, of this misunderstanding, between what is being perceived by the American people, because they project themselves on the American people. They don't know how to look at these issues and what is happening with these numbers through the lens of somebody else. They only know how to view it through their point of view. And they project. So I think you have some that are realistic and are just like, you know what, this is, toxic, and let's just ram stuff down. But you really do have some brain trust, lots of them, prevailing, that simply believe we're not articulating ourselves correctly. That's ridiculous. They believe that because they think the only voters in the country are their voters. Their voters don't know what the hell they've been up to. The rest of the country does and does not approve. This program was not popular. If you put some stupid little catchphrase, by the way, do you support infrastructure? Paving roads? Do you support filling in potholes?
Yeah, I love how
anybody will say yes to that. That is not what was in that bill. And you're insulting their intelligence by doing that. And then publicly they'll say, see, we polled it and people do support this. It's not what you did not poll what it was.
No, you manipulated.
You manipulated them. Right. You manipulated them. That's it. Yeah, James Carville's a perfect example. He tries to tell them what the hell's going on. And look at what they do to him. Look at the Daily Beast hit piece on Tim Pool the other day. He's a right-wing troll. Same thing with Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, Michael Tracy. They're all right-wingers now because they just have the ability to see the world and people through a lens that is not smeared and tainted by their own bias. And that is a problem because they will label you, man. If you break from the hive.
That's what happened to your cousin.
Yep, which I don't want to get into it, but you know what? At the same time, she's got a dose of her own medicine. And I'm not going to bring anything up personal.
Yeah. But I'm just saying.
You're a part of one of those radical groups. Yup.
They will eat you up.
You're part of one of those radical groups that ruin everybody's lives over stupid stuff. Like, let me point somebody in the right direction. Like, not subjecting yourself to tofu because you don't believe in harming animals or something. All right. And then you are portrayed as someone who has sinned against the cause. Even if you haven't, doesn't matter. She got a taste of her own medicine. Mm-hmm. They came after her with a vengeance. Yes.
Sure did.
Family, everything. Nick Burr said, if Glenn Greenwald is right wing, then I'm Hitler. Exactly. Glad that's off. It's exactly my point. Or Pinocchio. Or Pinochet. Oh, even worse. Yeah, would be better,
Mr. Fluffy, if Democrats run Michelle Obama in 2024, can Trump or DeSantis win?
Yeah, I think Michelle Obama's popularity is grossly overstated because she would be like Kamala Harris. Can we be honest? This is a show filled with honesty. The facade would fall away. Mm-hmm. She's an angry woman.
And she has that same nasty laugh.
And she will look, and she is just as capable as Joe Biden as lying about Kyle Rittenhouse, lying about Donald Trump and what he said over Charlottesville, lying about all of these incidents throughout the years, her husband's presidency and post, where she fanned the flames of racial division using flat out lies. Donald Trump never called white supremacists very fine people, yet she repeated that multiple times, but the worst of which at Joe Biden's nomination convention. I really don't think she's popular now like Hillary Clinton was popular when she was Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. Then you pop the hood and take a look in and go, damn!
Shut it. Close it.
No, thank you. That's a lemon. I am not at all concerned that she would even think. First of all, she's not even qualified.
No.
Can we be real?
She wasn't even qualified.
The woman had a token job as a hospital administrator. She is not qualified. Pop the... Oh, yeah, I didn't mean it like that, but you never know. Wow, we're well past the break. When we come back, we will answer some more questions and go over some more data. We're definitely going to talk about most important issue because Democrats are like racist. Joy Reid, racist. You know what? Democrats are only going to win because of racism. That was Larry Sabato. Worse. I expect it from Joy Reid. Shame on somebody like Mr. Tiny Crystal Balls for suggesting that. The real answer is right in the numbers.
Richie, don't be a ballist.
I know. I'm a ballist. I'm a crystal ballist. Tiny ballist. All right. When we come back, we'll go over that. We'll go over more. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, our special pre-Thanksgiving episode with Public Polling Project final fall 2021 results. And, by the way, before time runs out, I will be giving a little history lesson on Thanksgiving and why it matters. And, also my own little thing of thanks. All right. Be back in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds or however long it takes for Bowen Band to sing Bad Habit.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. Can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. You can follow me on Getter at People's Pundit. You can follow me on Twitter at People's_Pundit because some fraud took my handle and Twitter wouldn't, do a trademark thing or even stop his imposition of me. And then he dropped it and somebody else got it. And Twitter didn't tell me because Twitter is Twitter. All right, look, PVD archive. I'm about to put into the chat. All right. And I'll put it in the locals chat too. If you have time to go through some of these, especially if you're a subscriber, which it's supposed to be down by now. I'm having a difficult time getting a hold of these people to paywall. A lot of fun facts and videos that have to do with Thanksgiving. There's a lot of stuff that really is worth reading. All right. Because Thanksgiving was, of course, by the way, was declared by Abraham Lincoln. There was a horrible war, of course, and basically in 1863, President Lincoln proclaimed the National Day of Thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father who dwelleth in the heavens. It is most certainly a religious undertone to the holiday that we now know as Thanksgiving. With the proclamation, the United States of America became the first nation to establish a holiday based upon gratitude to the Creator and based upon gratitude, period. Americans were thankful for their faith, their good fortune, as well as their political and economic systems that nurtured their way of life. Now, for one day each year since, we have experienced untold hardship during experienced untold hardship during the Civil War, and Americans take the day to reflect on things in each of our own lives that we are thankful for. On a few occasions, the nation collectively reflects on what we have to be thankful for as a result of living in this great nation. After emerging the winner of the bitter election season, President Donald Trump called for national unity, and that didn't happen, obviously. And I think we're now, all these years past, I'm not sure if that is even possible anymore. So while we reflect on what kind of a nation we want to be and who should unify with who, it's important to remember what happened and why we even have a nation. There are a ton of articles that you could read. The first Thanksgiving in the Spirit of Capitalism, I wrote. And I'd like to read it now, if that's okay with you guys. It goes back, and I, basically went throughout all of this, like I just said to you. So basically, much to this, I'll fast forward. Much to the chagrin of collectivists, who Samuel Adams called a threat to the Constitution, period. Their schemes of leveling were not new, nor were they some, epiphany on how to have a more just society. They were re-gifted tyrannies. All right? And the national character of America is still very much individualistic. And this Thanksgiving, as I have been for all Thanksgivings, I thank God for that. The first Thanksgiving nearly never happened because they never had a chance to be thankful for anything. The Pilgrims almost starved to death. Schools often teach our children that Squanto, here we go. Patuxet Native American who resided with the Wampanoag tribe, taught the Pilgrims how to catch eel, fish, and grow corn. Unfortunately, they always skip the rest of the story, which my children know and yours should know it too. Pilgrims first operated under a communal system when they first settled Plymouth. The charter itself dictated that they would share in common property and farms, and as a result, each family was to receive an equal share of food despite how much work they put in. It was a colonial-era wealth distribution scheme. The result was expected: widespread starvation. Quote, much was stolen both by night and day, Governor William Bradford wrote, but he quickly noticed the less agreeable aspects of human nature, notably the innate human desire to free ride, if and when allowed, and he changed course. Thank God. Adopting a free market capitalist mentality which was conducive to their Protestant ethic, which we will get into soon. Governor Bradford noticed that the Pilgrims, quote, went willingly into the field. The calling. This idea that God wants you to get off your lazy and produce. Quote, they began now to gather in the small harvest they had and to fill up their houses and dwellings against winter, being all well recovered in health and strength and had all things in good plenty. Unquote. Due to property incentives, self-interest, and the tenets of their faith, including their unique work ethic, the soon-to-be founders of Plymouth Rock and the Massachusetts Bay Colony prospered. But without capitalism, or individualism, or the Protestant ethic, there would have been no true right to property, thus, no incentive. Sadly, there are those in American society that seek to distort and diminish the true spirit of capitalism. Those who seek to define this system in terms of greed and selfishness. Yet, just as today's Thanksgiving celebrations would likely be unrecognizable to attendees at the original 1621 harvest, the same is true with modern-day American capitalism. Our founding fathers believed capitalism to be a means to be much different, to be a means to a much different end than many view it to be now. Faith lays at the heart of this disparity and thought. The greater loss of faith, the greater distance we are now from the original principles of it. Quote, virtues and ethics are all that separate classical American capitalism from the simple pursuit of wealth that transpired in antiquity. European-style capitalism and the modern American free market, that's me in a virtuous republic. The removal of one's virtuous obligation to worldly aestheticism, or frugality, as they called it, has made the pursuit of wealth an object of greed, unquote. The book was a defense of American traditional values, political, economic, and cultural systems. Early Americans faithfully believed it was their duty to work, harvest, and provide, hence their unique work ethic. They didn't want to become a burden on civil society. And further, the goal was to achieve social and economic status that enables you to serve and help others. That is very key.
Yes.
You're not trying to pursue wealth for wealth's sake. It isn't greed you're after. You want to become a station where you can provide help to your fellow neighbor if and when they need it. You reach down instead of punching up.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, the secularization of American capitalism has made the pursuit of wealth an end, whereas with Protestantism, wealth historically was a means to achieve a strong civil society. But don't take my word for it. Don't do that. Max Weber, the German sociologist and political economist, wrote of the origins, history, and true spirit of capitalism long before I ever did. Quote, the impulse to acquisition, the pursuit of gain of money, of the greatest possible amount of money, has in itself nothing to do with capitalism. It should be taught in the kindergarten of cultural history that this naive idea of capitalism must be given up once and for all. Unlimited greed for gain is not in the least identical with capitalism and is still less its spirit. Unquote. A free market, whereas people are free to make choices and ultimately live as they wish, is the true cradle of liberty. Our founding fathers established a political and economic system in a new nation that would nurture those most agreeable characteristics of human nature, though it has unquestionably been distorted and diminished. This Thanksgiving, like I am every Thanksgiving, am thankful as hell that it survives today. And with that, you should really take some time to go and read a lot of stuff that we did. Thomas Purcell has some really good stuff on People's Pundit Daily about Thanksgiving. John Stossel, once upon a time, had a column on Thanksgiving. And we'll look, Yethna, I'm going to just put the search in there. You can actually see that column that I just wrote, which is titled, or just read, which is titled The First Thanksgiving and the Spirit of Capitalism. There's some great ones in there. Real Thanksgiving Message, Faith in Capitalism Vindicated. The Zen of Thanksgiving, Thomas Purcell, fantastic. The Thanksgiving Tragedy. Happy Free Market Thanksgiving, another one. Some articles about President Trump at the time. Honoring Sacrifice and Loss in his 2018 Thanksgiving Message was a fantastic Thanksgiving message. And then fun facts, stats, and videos for the 399th Thanksgiving. A lot of good stuff. But the bottom line is, with all that in mind, I want to say I am, at my heart, an absolute workaholic. And I'm glad, even though I try to find the balance, that so many of you out there appreciate it and appreciate the work that we do over here, because we do, in fact, bust our chops. And this Thanksgiving, I am especially thankful for all of you out there that follow us and support what we do. Because this community that we have built has made an impact. It has freed me. I don't have to worry about and pissing off anybody except for you. And that enables me to do my job better than others. You know? So Laura and I and my entire family are incredibly thankful and grateful for you all out there. All right. And with that, I am going to I should update Owen. I should update that book. I should make like a second edition.
You've been
10
saying
years
that.
later.
I don't want to hear you.
I'm serious.
Hush.
You know,
You've
because
been saying that for
it's
I've been
wonky.
pushing
It's
you to-
very wonky, and I think I can
It is
dumb it
not
down.
wonky.
Not dumb it down. I mean, I think I can make it more
Digestible.
modern, but yeah, digestible, and make it more into the modern. Because at this point, now 10 years later, there are so many things that I could point to and say. And the last, the original chapter of this book, which you just read, can be underscored by the following events that transpired. And there's
that
so
I was
much.
right.
Yes. All right. But it's wonky because it was a thesis that actually was trying to show there, and I left the math out, but I was actually trying to show that there is a relationship between morality and virtue and liberty. And when we lose or we start to decline in morality and virtue. We start to lean on the government to do the things that our once autonomous communities and societies did for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you wouldn't need food stamps because they
Your
would
neighbor
have
helps
fed
you.
your neighbor. Not because you were going to just give him a fish every damn day. You would lend him a hand and then teach him how to fish. And that is the way it was done because they lived by a different code. It was truly the Protestant ethic. Right? And that is what caused. Franklin was a Quaker, but he was a Protestant. He watches his towns burn. Every time one building catches on fire, it takes 3 blocks, and he says, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to design a little something we now know to be the Franklin stove. And guess what? I'm not taking a dime for it. I already made money at the printing press. The governor was like, are you out of your mind? Because we'll read a lot of these letters in the book. And the governor's like, basically, in modern terms, let me summarize. Hey, Ben, what's up? Nice stove. Are you crazy? Why aren't you patenting it, making a fortune of it?
We were just
Ben
talking
Franklin
about that,
replies,
remember?
I know, right? But the truth be told,
It's a
God
necessity.
is where the glory goes to this because he made me to be this talented. And I truly believe I am well off enough. I don't need the money and that God wants me to use those talents for the betterment of my fellow man.
You don't hear people talk like that.
You
no
don't
more.
hear that anymore, do you? So Ben Franklin didn't need, or the governor didn't need to ask Ben Franklin for a campaign contribution. And then when he gets elected, Franklin comes back and like, let me get a grant for that stove, right? Cylindra, the colonial Cylindra, okay? Or Joe Biden's infrastructure bill, which is all it was. But Joe Biden's infrastructure bill isn't even structured to be an infrastructure bill. We've been, by the way, also on PBD.
Actually, it's built
You
to
can
be a
read
deficit
about.
bill.
You can read. It's a deficit spending bill.
Yes.
You can read to kick back to all those who supported him. That's what it is. And you could read. Actually, speaking of PBD, you can read on there about how in the United States, ownership of infrastructure is in reality. And the Trump infrastructure bill was at least crafted to recognize that most of the bridges in this country are privately owned. Most of the dams privately owned. And there was no, oh, he's my buddy, I'm going to give him this contract. There was none of that. The private owners were incentivized to fix and repair or rebuild completely. Nobody was given anything because they knew somebody. Or there was a lobbyist in the Trump administration, which was banned, by the way. All right. Let's get back to the poll. The poll. I really love the poll.
I know you do.
I love the
cute.
poll, man. I do. I love numbers. I love displaying them. I can't wait for you guys to see this map.
FYI, locals, I'm trying to get in, but it's not letting me on my phone. So
The live chat?
Yeah.
You want to use mine and just pretend you're me?
Is
I'm in it.
It's letting you. It's
Yeah.
not letting me.
What?
I can't even
Hold
see
on 1 second.
questions. Nothing.
I was in there. Uh-oh. It seems to have booted me.
See,
No, but I'm in.
You can see what people are saying.
Sep State, welcome to the community. Welcome to the community, Sep State. And everybody else who is new to the People's Pundit community, welcome, welcome. Everybody, I trust you will treat all the new followers we have been getting. The explosion and growth in our community is something to behold. I love you all for it. I trust everybody will treat each other with dignity and respect. I don't even have to ever ask you guys that. You do. This is a thinking person's community. We are now 5 away from a milestone. So that's incredible. Really incredible. With COVID and everything, we had COVID. What else? Your surgery. It really slowed us down on content.
Sure did.
And we had at least had a nice rebound. Let's take a look at the most important issues, shall we? We shall. All right. The economy and jobs is number 1, barely by 1 point. Almost half of the country is purely concerned about economic and pocketbook issues. 24.2% cited cost of living as their most important issue. And 23.2% cited I mean, a 23.2% cited cost of living is their most important issue, and 24.2% cited jobs in the economy. Let me just make sure that was correct. I was like a little bit backward there. Okay. I would actually like to update this, and just for this, because of the tiny crystal ball comment, I want to show people the difference between the vote when you're looking at issues. And you tell me if people are motivated by racism. Okay? Which I know is stupid. I know I don't have to do this. I'm just trying to make a point. Okay? Hurry up and update. I know you got a lot to update. Let's go. It'll be up there soon. Now, while I do that, it'll come up. 12.2% now chose coronavirus vaccines and mandates. Until the very last day, coronavirus was number 4. You know what happened? A wave of conservative independents, and some Republicans, but a wave of conservative independents chose coronavirus vaccines and mandates as their number 1 issue because they're opposed to it. They're opposed to mandates. And that is their number 1 issue. A lot of the other, which I could go in, you know what dominated other this time now that I took out abortion? Election reform. Interesting, right? All right. Healthcare, number 4, 9.3. Crime, policing, and safety, number 5. That flips up. That's number 6. Environment and climate change, number 5. Gun rights and the Second Amendment, 4.7%. Public education and critical race theory, 3%. 4.7 said other, and like I said, that the most out of that was election reform. Abortion, 3.5%. All right, now let's see if this is in there. Let me re-up this, see if it's in there. It is indeed. Let's look at the most important issue by first the generic ballot. Woo! The economy and jobs. Republicans crushing. Cost of living, if you cited that as your number 1 concern, crushing. Coronavirus vaccines and mandates, Republicans Democrats barely lead. 47 to 39. It's an 8-point lead for coronavirus. That's it. Why? Because in 2020, if you chose coronavirus, vaccinations, mandates, if you chose that, you were 75-25 a Biden voter. A Democrat voter, period. Not anymore, because people's priorities are changing. Very strong issue in the top 4 for Democrats is healthcare. Policing, crime, and safety, Republicans are killing. Environment and climate change is more like what coronavirus used to be, with 3 out of 4 going for the Democratic candidate, but it's just not that high up on the totem pole. Gun rights and Second Amendment, Republicans killing it. Public education, critical race theory, Republicans are stomping Democrats on public education voters. So if you thought Virginia was it, you better think again. On the other category, Republicans have a very strong lead. Again, that was dominated by election reform. And abortion, again, as we saw Glenn Youngkin do in Virginia. And the exit polls confirmed we were right.
He better come through on his
Republicans are winning people who cite abortion as their top issue. That's the generic ballot. Let's look at Trump v. Biden. Bigger lead on cost of living. 30-point lead Trump has on cost of living voters. Big damn issue. The worst part about it is Democrats made this issue for themselves. They did this by spending too much. They did this by killing supply chains. They did this to the country. If they didn't even have this, all they'd have to deal with is the usual 20-point thumping on jobs and economy. They created this issue. Coronavirus, vaccinations, and mandates. Again, Joe Biden barely leads Donald Trump on this now. Barely. Healthcare. Biden has a nice lead on healthcare. That is still true for Democrats. Crime, policing, and safety. 20-point lead for Donald Trump. Environment and climate change. Very similar to the lead we saw for Democrats. Actually, Joe Biden's is a little bit less because Democrats, the generic ballot, they were about 75.5. I strongly assume the rest of these would largely go to Joe Biden. All right. So it would be 75, 20 plus 5 go to somewhere else. And you know what? It is possible a lot of these do end up breaking for the someone else, because this could be like Jill Stein, Green Party voters, depends how significant a third party candidate would really be. All right. I strongly believe this time the media is not going to be able to call the shots on who is and who isn't a legitimate candidate. I think they really burn that bridge. Public education, critical race theory, Donald Trump has the lead. Donald Trump is leading the president of the United States on education, a Democratic president. Again, this may be the worst poll for Democrats that I have ever conducted because of all of these built-in, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's just so many alarm bells going off.
Jay Miller said, "Wait until pension funds start imploding."
Oh, man.
Let's not even go there.
You know what? We should look at the union thing, too. That was an interesting shift.
Mhm.
Tightening, Other and write-ins. Election reform. Donald Trump has a 40-point lead on other and write-in, which, again, is dominated by election reform. I'm just repeating for people who may just jump in and hear it. A bigger lead than... So voters trust Donald Trump more on election reform than they trust Republicans. And Republicans have a 25 or 8-point lead on it, something like that. Donald Trump has a 40-point lead on it, 39.2. Abortion, Donald Trump leads on voters who chose abortion as the number one issue. Folks, I cannot stress enough how significant and historic some of those numbers I just read are. Republicans don't win abortion voters. They don't win education voters. Cost of living is more like pocketbook. They win the economy, but they tend to lose some of those pocketbook concerns. Because Democrats are always like, I'm going to help you with a government program. Right now, voters are like, no more government. You're killing me. And I don't see how that's going anywhere. I don't. If you want to just for you-know-whats and giggles, just look at how these margins widen even more against Harris. Holy moly.
Sorry.
30-point lead
I'm
again.
being immature.
Harris, the only thing she holds a line on is a 9-point lead with coronavirus. That's nothing. Healthcare, she actually loses a tick. Crime and safety, 23 points. She falls about 5 with environment and climate change. Definitely gets creamed among gun rights. That's a 40-point lead with gun rights voters, Second Amendment voters. Public education, critical race theory, 12%, roughly. The other is 61-19. And abortion is 43-31. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. It's incredible. Employer mandates for the COVID-19 vaccine, which I want to show. These things are not popular. 56.
They're what?
They're not popular. Not popular. 56.3% of voters in America oppose the employer mandate. They're not popular. Only 38.5% support. That's it. When you look at who does and who doesn't strongly oppose, if you cited jobs in the economy, 53.1% strongly opposed. If you cited cost of living, 56.3% strongly opposed. If you cited something other, which again was dominated by election reform, 67.9% strongly opposed. Folks, several hundred responses there. 69%? 68? Strongly opposed? It's a big deal. This has nothing to do with race or racism.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. So sick of that crap. Looking at race for this vaccine. American Indian and Alaskan Natives have the highest disapproval of this policy or opposition. Asians are really basically the highest supporters. 43.4% of African Americans oppose it. 60.5% of whites, again, Native Americans and Alaskans, have the highest opposition. Asians have the highest support at 58.5% support, which really shouldn't surprise anybody. All right, school mandates for children, unpopular. Okay, 51 basically oppose, 44 support. It is going to get more negative as time goes on, because I think what we saw was a similar margin with the employer mandate at first, but then reality hit and it started to widen out. And I think you're going to see when they try to push this on people, it's going to be a significant problem, and this margin is going to widen, but it's already unpopular. Okay? I don't know where these people come up with these phony ass numbers. There is no universe where I could come up with 70% support a mandate for employers and 80, yeah, that's right, 85. Did I say 80? It was 85. 85% support jabbing little children.
Mm-hmm.
Only if you smoked meth and calculated those numbers.
Well, crack too.
Jeez. Totally different universe.
Just
It's
real
simply
quick.
not true.
One of our followers and our locals follower, Joel, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Joel. Happy birthday. You know what? I do birthday messages once in a while.
That's so funny.
And if I'd have known Joel, I'd have recorded you something. Okay? Keep that in mind, people. Keep that in mind for next year, Joel. All right? I'll be 1 year older, and the voice won't be quite as what it used to be.
I'm sorry.
200,000 or more. Interesting question I got on locals, which is why I'm showing this right now. With the mandate, did income have an impact? And ironically, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to both the school mandate and the employer mandate, we tend to see people who make more money were actually less of it. Nobody supported it. Nobody. All right. But the higher income, if you have a high income, but you're not like educated, that means you're like a self-made person, you are way opposed to this mandate. 62% of people who make $200,000 or more strongly oppose it. That compares to 38.3% who strongly oppose it who make under 30,000. All right, now don't get me wrong, under 30,000 is still 53.3% total against it. All right, but it is interesting how somebody said, "Hey, how is the working class aspect of this?" And that's why by education, I really didn't, I don't think it's as important as, like post grads. They support it 44% more than high school education or less, without a doubt. High school education is only 38% support. Post grads 44.2. So I mean, there's a big difference. And by the way, on some of those generic ballot and head-to-head matchups, that giant lead that we had found for Democrats constantly among those who have a postgraduate or even a bachelor's degree has evaporated, especially when it comes to bachelor degrees. If you're an undergrad, or if you have some college or an associate degree, you have started to move away. And I still think Democrats, of course, will win them. But what I'm saying is they're not winning them by the margins 3-1 that we were seeing before, 2-1, 3. That's not going to happen. And in fact, I'm not the only one who found that, who has found that. So far, I saw Suffolk, I saw Quinnipiac, still at a disparity, but it was not as big as it was. It's like it was kind of close to ours, although ours a little bit is closer. Ours a little closer to Rasmussen as far as, basically, Republicans are taking a lot right now. They're taking a lot. Now, could change, but I don't really see how it's going to. Things are not. You saw what is driving it. And I just don't see a way for that to go. I don't see a way for that, the overall environment, to get better. Let's stop sharing the crosstab and take a look at the table, which is going out for the registered voter economic confidence. Before I show the overall screenshot, which I could show, look at the sub-indicator levels. And for those who don't know, we ask people, please assign a positive, neutral, or negative value to each of the following: current business conditions, current employment conditions, 6-month outlook for both of them, and then 6-month outlook for total family income. The first two make up the present condition index. The latter three make up the expectations index. And all 5 combined make up the registered voter economic confidence index. It is the same methodology used by the Consumer Conference Board for the Consumer Confidence Index. The difference being, we do not use 1980 as a baseline or 1985 as a baseline. It is still calculated using a relative value because that's the way to do it. And what you should be doing is adding the number of positive, the number of negative. This is how you get a relative. And when you get that sum, you divide positive by the sum of the two. And that gives you a relative value. To come up with the overall index for the current conditions, you do that for both the current condition indicators, sub-indicators, and you average them together, and that will give you the present situation index. The latter 3, which are sub-indicators for the future expectations, you just average them out. And that gives you the future expectations index. But you have to get relative values first. That's key. All right. And then all 5 relative values make up the index level. This is, if I did not show it already, actually, I'll show the trend first. Then we'll talk about the sub-indicator levels, because that really tells the tale. Okay. Here it is. This is, and let me go to all my crosstabs for when I'm ready. This is the registered voter economic confidence index trend. Hold on, I got a Marco Rubio myself.
It's so much easier on my computer.
Gotta love water.
Mm-hmm. Nectar of life.
Nectar of life. The gold is the index itself, the main index. All right. Blue is the future expectations index, and red is the current conditions index. All right. What you have is a dive to an all-time new low again. All right. And now that I show you that, I know you're laughing, but it sucks. I mean, ask Laura. I was like deeply disturbed reading the responses over the weekend. I was like, this sucks.
It's really sad when you read certain.
It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the one who, if I can't find, wait a minute. If I can find it, I can't afford it. If I can't find it. What did they say? I have it written down.
If I can find it, I can't afford it.
Yeah.
And no, if I can find
If I can find it, I can't afford it.
And if I can't find it, I can afford it.
Yeah.
Like meaning like they can.
And if I can afford it, I can't find it. That's right. If I can afford it, I can't find it.
And if I can find it,
if I can find it, I can't afford it.
Yes.
That's it. That's exactly what they said. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was like one of the most powerful things I've ever heard doing this. You remember when I used to keep voicemails?
Mm-hmm.
They were so funny. Or interviews. We'd go back. Americans are funny, boy.
My favorite is that original guy. You were trying to poll him, and he actually called you back.
Yeah, because we gave that up. Yeah, and he was like, "Listen,
I've been working all day.
I've been working all. I mean, it was expletive after expletive, but I thought it was hilarious, and I couldn't stop laughing. He was cool.
True.
He was cool. It was true. You know, and that's how annoying pollsters are. It's not, I didn't even begrudge him over it. It was hilarious. All right, so here we have what makes up the trend. All right, you could see a slight All right, let's start in the spring, in early spring. You see that there? The index started off not very impressive at all. However, people had hope for the future. 63, 64.1. Keep an eye on these. As time went on, maybe a little tick down a little bit, ticked up a little bit, ticked down a little bit, ticked up, ticked down. The survey is designed not to be volatile. You don't want these wild swings of multiple points. It's designed to move on a measured marginal basis if things are stable. If it starts to get volatile, ain't stable. All right, you get me? All right. This ticked a little bit up, as we were going, that ticked a little down, hit an all-time low here. But then ticked back up, started to marginally recover last month. And I mean recover, it just stopped. Truth is, as I said when we released it, those recoveries were within the sampling eras. It is meant to be marginal, yes. But I said, let's wait a little bit. If you guys remember this, I said, let's wait a little bit and let's see what the next month or 2, 3 have to bring. And what did they bring? Bottom line is, within the numbers, the biggest concern was even as the overall indexes, especially the current, were going up and down a little, going up a little, going down a little, you could see the future expectations index begin to crater. Okay? Expectations for business conditions, expectations for their employment conditions, which Rasmussen, their job market index, hit the lowest level this month ever. And we can see why. Look at expectations for the employment conditions. Folks, it's started out 64.1, 65, ticked up a little bit, ticked down again, but then ticked up a little bit. It's never been in this territory before. Never. Expectations for total family income, which is directly related to fear over inflation, is now again at an all-time low. It started high. What happened? 6 months came. That's what happened. We started in March. 6 months came. Actually, we started before March, didn't we? That's not in there. No, we started in March. April was here. Yeah, I think there's one more reading. But regardless, doesn't matter. It shows you clearly. People are afraid that their wages are not going to keep pace with inflation. People are afraid that they're not going to have vertical, let alone, they're not going to have horizontal, let alone upward mobility in the job market. People are afraid they're not going to have an employer who's stoked about giving them a promotion. Okay? They're not stoked about where they're at right now, let alone where they'll be in 6 months, or the opportunity that will be around them for jobs in 6 months. This sucks. It does, because we have seen other indexes confirm we're right here. Other sentiment indexes. And as you know, if you've been watching, this really didn't have to be like this. Because truth be told, people expected things to get better under you-know-who if he was you-know-where. And instead we got this other you-know-who, and now he's you-know-where, and now people think the economy is in deep trouble. Yeah, it's nowhere. Thank you for keeping up with the alliteration, our use of alliteration. It's bad. When we what goes into these numbers? Current business conditions. Views on positive present conditions. Please assign either positive, you know the deal. 24% said positive. 35.9% said negative. 40 were neutral. Current employment conditions. 27% positive. 30% neutral. 42% negative. Expected business conditions. 29.7 or 20, almost 30 were positive, but 37 were negative and 33 were neutral. Employment conditions. 32.5% positive, 36.7 negative, 30.8 neutral. And total family income, 29, which was down. 29.2 positive, 37.4 negative, 33.4 neutral.
All right, I got lightning round of 4 questions.
Let's do it real quick.
All right.
Let's do
Because
it.
I'm gonna have to run for the.
Yeah, we gotta go. We got a lot of things we
Things
gotta
to
do,
do.
and I'm sure you guys do too. You know, and
Yeah.
I'll probably pop on locals, talk more about this. I think we'll try to do something on Friday. But you know, it's busy time. I know we gotta go, and plus, if I don't go and do something before you do, I'm gonna really screw myself.
Yes.
Go.
Mike N. Isn't status a loaded term designed to get the right to be afraid of using government power to secure liberty?
Well, you should be afraid to use government power
Okay.
to secure liberty. It never really works, does it? I mean, hold on one second. I mean, it's important. I know lightning round.
I thought you
I don't think it's a loaded term. It's an umbrella term used to describe all people. There are different ideologies, whether you're a socialist, you're a communist, you're a fascist. All involved are statists who believe in the use of government coercion. And you put it in a very virtuous, manner. Oh, well, to preserve liberty. Government has never preserved liberty. That's not its job. I mean, its job is to preserve safety and the social contract, but it is never. Well, not just that, but it's to protect the social contract and the community at large. But it never has secured liberty for individuals. I don't even think the civil rights era is a testament to that. It made it worse. Made it much worse. But there's a hidden history after the Civil War to the era of Jim Crow. We never talk about it because government was the villain. There would not have been a Jim Crow era if big government did not step in. And they did, and because Abraham Lincoln was sadly assassinated. He did not want to do that. But he died. So ironically, John Wilkes Booth created a monster that he was trying to stop, which was a big, overbearing, tyrannical government.
Irony, and it's fine.
Really is irony.
C509.
With evil, you get evil,
Yes.
Laura. You
reap what you sow.
Yeah.
C509. Is there any one specific state from your poll that seems to be shifting towards generic Republican / Trump the most? You had mentioned New Hampshire before.
Yeah, there's definitely some movement in places like New Hampshire. I also was telling Laura about North Carolina. I know Democrats are really pissed about the redistricting there, but North Carolina looks like a Trump plus. I don't even know. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, in the raw, he was leading Biden by 11 points in North Carolina. It was a significant lead. And then I think, despite the Fabrizio polling, and Fabrizio does good work, I don't believe if we had a rematch right now or going into 2022, I don't think Warnock stands a chance as of right now against Herschel Walker. Biden's approval rating, we polled it for the Georgia record, was at 41% a few months. What was it? What did we poll for them? 2 months ago? Something like that? 6 weeks maybe? And it was big, a couple of weeks before Virginia. And he was in big trouble. The generic Republicans were up by like 5, I think. So I'm not sure. I just don't. I think we're going to see a mean of like 10, 12 points in any given state. So that's a good question, but I think that's why it's important if Republicans really do want to have the best shot to nominate the best candidates that they can, but also do so with the understanding that you really don't have to settle this time. Like, Democrats don't settle. They pick the candidate they want and they feel best represents their ideology. And they do it without concern of whether they'll be called socialists or whatever. Well, this is a cycle where Republicans can do it and should do so without being afraid.
Nick Carducci. An operational 10 to 40% Fed state bond laundering, debt service 40 to 50% debt spend, government contractors less perpetual motion, machine, durable, earth, services, and food. What public utility free rider immutables?
I have no idea what you're talking about. An operational 10 to 40% Fed state bond laundering, debt services 40 to 50 debt spend. Government contractors, less perpetual motion, machine, durable, earth, services, and food. What public utility free rider? Yeah, I'm not sure that's like really a question. I mean, I don't think that's really. It's making a point, really, and then the question is more like a
rhetorical.
Yeah, kind of.
Hey, if I see question mark, I copy it for all the people. Where to go? there it is. Would some movement among college educated relate to type of degree, i.e., technical versus liberal arts?
That's a fantastic question. And Robert and I really want to look at that next time. So when they tell us they are college educated, we want to know what kind. Because we talked to, I caught it, and I caught it the last minute. The graduate degree looked really too favorable for Republicans. There was some concentrations of veterans with college degrees that were overrepresented in some areas. And I caught that and fixed it just by region. Thank you. You don't go in there and wait for veterans. That's ridiculous. But, you can fix it by saying, whoa, that's maybe too much in the South or whatever it may be. That's a great question because I think that really does matter. So if you're in like a professional class, kind of a Zoomer world, you're clearly going to be different than if you were somebody who has a post-grad in military history or military tactics or economics, for instance. So that's a really good question. And Robert and I we'll get your input when we do. We're really going to start to ask more details, just like kind of like when you do an occupation with employment, only this time it's more like, what did you get your degree in? Are you a liberal arts degree? Oh, okay. Or are you a Bachelor of Science? Yeah, more technical, maybe. That's great. I'm with you.
All right. I just want to say thank you guys. We love you. We appreciate all of your support, and we appreciate your word of mouth. We appreciate whether you're a Locals member, Rumble watcher. We love the love. And without you, none of this would be possible.
Wouldn't be able to do it.
So just know that you will be in my Thanksgiving things on Thanksgiving Day.
And that's well put, honey. Well put. All right, with that in mind, Locals, especially, keep an eye out. There will be more stuff added to the crosstabs. I'll give you a hat tip. These layouts we've been building are going to be super, super cool. You're going to love them. And then also, I will send out the link to when that map is done. There's just some tweaking still, but it looks so much better than the other map. It's much more interactive, So I really think you guys will like it a lot. And there'll be more stuff added. We have still, let me just real quick before I let you guys go, we still have Biden's approval on immigration, Biden's approval on crime, U.S.-China relations, foreign policy. All that's done. It's just, I wish I could show you how damn ugly it looks before it all gets put in. Actually, I can show you. Let me do it real quick. I absolutely can. What's stopping me? You'll see what I mean. I mean, it's just almost unreadable, So this is what it looks like when I first get it, guys. All right. This is what it looks like when I'm building these crosstabs. Here's his approval on U.S.-China relations forum. See how it says Biden approval, coronavirus pandemic, Biden approval, economy and jobs. I do all of that. And you do it by going to update the results. Let me just save it and make sure I don't miss anything, okay? Hurry, hurry, hurry. Okay, it's done. All right, so you'll go to variables in a particular data set. And this is all the data submitted, time submitted, refer us, okay? And vote histories, I got to go through all of that. This is variable values that could be there, the categories, because I categorize them. Code, this helps me read it later on the other end, or if there's an API, instead of having, a lot of times I just try to mimic the name as long as it doesn't cause problems with special characters. All right, but crime and police and safety, here's the ranking of issues that I have to put into rank distribution. But you see how ugly it is, okay? And when I click on it, let's click on Kevin McCarthy's here for a second, and let me show you what it does. Kevin McCarthy, all right, you're only going to want the question to print out on the crosstab, right? This ugly A or I is indicating that there is a hyphen, the old Gallup hyphen, all right? And the code, you're not going to want all that. So you're just going to go, I don't think I'm going to keep it this, but I'm just showing you this. Kevin McCarthy, favorability, all right? Or McCarthy, favorability. And I'll try and mimic that. And like I said, I'm going to go back and look and see exactly what it is. It's backward. No opinion, never heard of. Okay. That should be value 5. So it appears the correct way on the table. Somewhat favorable will be the second. Somewhat unfavorable will be the third. Very favorable is number 1. And very unfavorable will appear on the 4th row of the table. So That's what new value code means. It doesn't change what those responses are. It simply shifts it from the old value code where it appears on the table to the new value. Now, I just did that one very quickly, but you will see 40, 50 something variables, and then you have to, and sometimes it does this because the data set is huge. All right, so it's getting done. There we go. Now I can easily go to the crosstab and drag Kevin McCarthy's favorability into the crosstab, which I'll do right now for you. But you'll see what I mean when I say this whole process. All right. And believe it or not, there's sometimes some really dumb errors. And they happen they're not in your control. So for instance, we're missing right track, wrong track. Okay. I'll show you why. I'm going to have to go in and fix this. There's right track, wrong track. You see something weird there? Let me close the editor. The hell is WR? It took one response, cut the rest because there was probably something wrong with the CSV file, cut the rest, and there's one damn answer that belongs in, it really should be the 1,499th answer, but it's in WR. So I have to go in there and fix that. By the way, this is a disaster. 62.1%. Think the country's head on the wrong track. 30% is the right. You guys know we're not usually that big. We don't have 30-point gulfs, but we do here. I wish it would show you the description because oftentimes I get these trolls on Twitter and they're like, where's your methodology? It's not on the crosstab, the interactive crosstab, but it is right here. At least basic disclosure stuff is. So you can see what we're waiting for and what we did. But eventually what I'll do is take that and then I'll have to put that into, and that's ugly, so I'm going to get rid of it and put McCarthy's under Harris's approval. Oh, no, it's at the generic ballot. Okay, no, McCarthy had to go first. Favorability goes before. Okay. You got to give him a best chance he can get. You know what, though? I'll leave it there for now. But the bottom line is, it's a pain in the butt. All right, so I just wanted to show you that to give you an idea of what we have to go through to make these. And sometimes it's stupid little things that throw you off, stupid little things that don't get converted correctly. Now we have McCarthy's favorability. You got me curious. Let's take a look at it. Oh, God. 49.8% is unfavorable, even to include 29.6 who are very. And only 20, see, his never heard of, no opinion was 30%. And every time it shrinks a little bit, it goes into either somewhat or very. You suck, Kevin. You suck. All right. Happy Thanksgiving, Kevin, but you suck. All right. Let's go. We're going to leave. Follow me on Twitter at peoples_pundit. Follow me on Getter at peoplespundit. But of course, join the revolution in data journalism. And the best place to find me is Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. Come join the community. It's a great time, great discussion, and we'll be waiting. All right. With that in mind, folks, Locals, see you soon. Everybody else, see you Friday. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker.